The fist came without warning. Police Chief Vernon Briggs drove his knuckles into the stranger's jaw with the confidence of a man who had never been challenged in 18 years. The diner fell silent. Coffee cups froze mid-air. Every breath held. But the stranger didn't fall. He didn't stumble. He didn't even blink. He simply wiped the blood from his split lip, looked Briggs dead in the eyes, and sat back down. What the chief didn't know, what no one in that forgotten Montana town knew, was that he had just struck a retired Navy SEAL commander who had killed more enemies than Briggs had arrested criminals. And Marcus Reyes never forgot a debt. Leave a like, subscribe, and comment your city below. Let's see how far this story travels. Now, let's continue. The coffee had gone cold 20 minutes ago. Marcus Reyes didn't notice. He sat in the corner booth of Ruby's diner, his back to the wall, eyes tracking every movement in the room, without appearing to watch anything at all. Old habits, the kind that kept you alive in places where a moment's distraction meant a folded flag sent to your family. Shadow lay beneath the table, the Belgian Malinois pressed against Marcus's boots. 7 years old, 65 pounds of muscle and loyalty, one ear torn from shrapnel that had nearly killed them both in Kandahar. The dog's eyes moved when Marcus's eyes moved. They breathed in the same rhythm. They had learned to survive together. The diner was quiet. Too quiet. Marcus had noticed it the moment he walked in. The way conversations dropped to whispers. The way eyes darted toward the door every few minutes. The way the elderly woman behind the counter moved with the careful precision of someone expecting to be struck. Her name was Ruth Holloway, 68 years old, white hair pinned back, hands that trembled when she poured coffee. She had smiled at Marcus when he entered, a real smile, the kind that costs something in a place like this. Then her eyes had flickered to the window, and the smile died. "Just passing through?" she had asked. "Truck broke down," Marcus replied. "Waiting on parts." Ruth's face had tightened. "How long?" 3 days, maybe 4. She had looked at him then, really looked. And something shifted in her expression. Fear, yes, but underneath it, something else. Something that looked almost like hope. "Be careful here," she whispered. "This town, it's not what it seems." Marcus had nodded, said nothing. He had seen towns like this before. Places where power had rotted from the inside. Where good people learned to keep their heads down and their mouths shut. He wasn't looking for trouble. He just wanted to eat, sleep, and leave. But trouble, he had learned, rarely cared what you were looking for. The door slammed open at exactly 11:47 a.m. Marcus didn't turn. He didn't need to. He watched the reflection in the window, saw the shape that filled the doorway, felt the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. Police Chief Vernon Briggs walked like a man who owned everything his eyes touched. 54 years old, 280 pounds, a face carved from meanness and small-town power. His uniform stretched across his gut, badge polished to a shine that said more about vanity than service. A Glock 19 sat on his hip, the holster worn from years of casual intimidation. Behind him came 2 deputies, younger, leaner, with the hollow eyes of men who had traded their consciences for a steady paycheck. Every head in the diner lowered. Every conversation stopped. Ruth's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the coffee pot. Briggs surveyed the room with the satisfaction of a predator entering his territory. His gaze swept across the booths, the counter, the kitchen doorway, and stopped on Marcus. The stranger in the corner, the one who hadn't lowered his eyes. Well, well. Briggs's voice carried the lazy drawl of a man who enjoyed the sound of his own words. "Looks like we got ourselves a visitor." He walked toward Marcus's booth, boots heavy on the worn floor. The deputies flanked him, hands resting on their belts. The other customers seemed to shrink, trying to disappear into their seats. Marcus took a sip of cold coffee. He didn't look up. Briggs stopped at the edge of the table. Shadow's lip curled, a low growl building in his throat. Marcus tapped his boot once against the dog's side. The growl stopped instantly. "You deaf, boy?" Briggs asked. "I'm talking to you." Marcus set down his cup. He raised his eyes slowly, meeting the chief's gaze with the flat calm of a man who had stared down far worse. "I heard you," he said. "Just didn't have anything to say." Briggs's eyes narrowed. He wasn't used to this. 18 years of running Pinewood Creek had taught him that people broke. They always broke. A hard stare, a raised voice, a hand on the gun. That's all it took. But this stranger sat there like none of it touched him. "You got a name?" Briggs demanded. "Marcus Reyes." "Where you from, Marcus Reyes?" "Nowhere in particular." Briggs leaned down, close enough that Marcus could smell the coffee on his breath, the cheap cologne, the sour undercurrent of a man who had stopped caring what others thought of him. "Let me explain something to you, friend. This is my town. I decide who stays and who goes. I decide who eats and who starves. I decide who breathes easy and who chokes on their own blood. You understand me?" Marcus held his gaze. "I understand you just fine." Something flickered in Briggs's eyes. Uncertainty. It was brief, there and gone in a heartbeat. But Marcus saw it. The chief wasn't used to being met head-on. He wasn't used to men who didn't flinch. "What's that under the table?" Briggs asked, his voice hardening. "My dog. Big dog. Mean-looking." Briggs smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I don't like dogs." "He doesn't like bullies," Marcus replied quietly. "Guess you're even." The words hung in the air like a lit fuse. One of the deputies sucked in a breath. Ruth dropped a spoon behind the counter, the clatter obscenely loud in the silence. Briggs straightened. His face had gone red, the flush of a man who had been challenged in front of his own people. "What did you just say to me?" Marcus didn't repeat himself. He simply looked at the chief with eyes that had seen death delivered in a dozen countries. Eyes that had watched friends bleed out in the sand. Eyes that no longer carried fear, because fear had been burned out of him long ago. "I'm just passing through," Marcus said quietly. "I don't want trouble. I just want to eat my breakfast and wait for my truck to get fixed. That's all." Briggs stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "You hear that, boys? He doesn't want trouble." He turned to his deputies, gesturing broadly. "The drifter doesn't want trouble. Ain't that sweet?" The deputies chuckled nervously. Sensing their boss's rising anger, Briggs turned back to Marcus. His hand moved to his belt, fingers brushing the grip of his gun. "Here's what's going to happen, stranger. You're going to get up. You're going to walk out that door. And you're going to keep walking until this town is a memory. Because if you're still here when I come back tomorrow, I'll be here," Marcus said. 3 days, maybe 4. That's how long the parts take. Briggs's jaw tightened. "You interrupting me, boy?" "Just stating facts." The chief moved fast for a man his size. His hand shot out and grabbed the collar of Marcus's jacket, yanking him forward across the table. Coffee spilled. The cup shattered on the floor. "Listen to me, you piece of—" Ruth's voice cut through the tension. "Chief Briggs, please. He's just a traveler. He didn't mean any disrespect." Briggs released Marcus and spun toward the counter. "Did I ask for your opinion, old woman?" Ruth shrank back, her face pale. "No, sir, You just what?" Briggs stalked toward her, his voice rising. "You just thought you'd tell me how to do my job? In my own town? Is that what you thought?" "No, sir. I'm sorry, sir." Briggs reached the counter. He stood over Ruth, towering, his shadow swallowing her. "Coffee," he said. Ruth's hands trembled as she poured. The liquid sloshed, spilling onto the counter. "Can't even pour a cup of coffee right," Briggs muttered. He grabbed the cup, took a sip, grimaced. "This is cold. You serving cold coffee now, Ruth?" "I'll make fresh. Just give me a minute." Briggs slapped the cup from her hands. It flew across the counter, spraying coffee across Ruth's apron, shattering against the wall behind her. Ruth cried out, stumbling backward, her hip striking the edge of the counter. And then Marcus was standing. He didn't remember getting up. One moment he was in the booth. The next he was on his feet, his body moving on instincts honed by years of training and combat. Shadow rose with him, ears flat, muscles coiled. "That's enough," Marcus said. The words were quiet, almost gentle, but something in his voice made both deputies take a step back. Briggs turned slowly. His face had gone from red to purple, a vein throbbing in his temple. "What did you say to me?" "I said, that's enough." Marcus moved toward the counter, placing himself between Briggs and Ruth. "She's an old woman. She doesn't deserve that." "She's my property," Briggs snarled. "This whole town is my property, and you're nothing. Just another drifter who wandered into the wrong place at the wrong time." "Maybe," Marcus said. "But I'm the drifter who's telling you to leave her alone." Briggs stared at him. Something worked behind his eyes. Calculation. Rage. A flicker of something that might have been fear. "You know what I think?" Briggs said softly. "I think you're a troublemaker. I think you came into my town looking to stir things up. And I think—" He moved without warning. The punch came fast, hard, aimed at Marcus's jaw, with the full weight of 18 years of unchallenged authority behind it. It connected. Marcus's head snapped to the side. Blood burst from his split lip. The diner went absolutely silent. Ruth gasped. The deputy stiffened. Every customer held their breath, waiting for Marcus to fall, waiting for him to crumble, waiting for the stranger to break like everyone else had broken before him. But Marcus didn't fall. He didn't stumble. He didn't even blink. He simply turned his head back, looked Briggs dead in the eyes, wiped the blood from his mouth with the back of his hand, and sat back down. The silence stretched. 1 second. 2. 3. Briggs stood frozen, his fist still raised, his face contorted with confusion. This wasn't supposed to happen. People fell when he hit them. People begged. People broke. This man had done none of those things. "You're making a big mistake," Briggs whispered. His voice had lost its swagger. "Maybe." Marcus picked up a napkin, dabbed at his lip. "But it won't be my first, and I doubt it'll be my last." Briggs stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned and walked toward the door. His deputies followed, their faces pale, their eyes confused. At the door, Briggs stopped. "You've got until sundown to leave this town," he said, without turning around. "After that, I can't guarantee your safety." Marcus didn't respond. Briggs pushed through the door and was gone. The diner remained silent for a full minute. Then, slowly, conversations resumed. Whispered, cautious, but conversations nonetheless. Ruth approached Marcus's booth. Her hands were shaking. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Why did you do that?" Marcus looked at her, at the fear in her eyes. at the hope struggling to surface beneath it, because someone should have done it a long time ago. Ruth's eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand. He'll come back." "He always comes back. And when he does—" "I know," Marcus said quietly. "But maybe this time, things will be different." "How?" Marcus looked at Shadow, at the dog who had saved his life more times than he could count, at the partner who would never let him face anything alone. "Because I'm not leaving," he said. "Not until this is finished." Ruth stared at him. The tears spilled over. And for the first time in 18 years, she allowed herself to believe that change was possible. Marcus didn't sleep that night. Not because of the pain. The punch had been nothing. He'd taken worse from men who actually knew how to fight. No, he stayed awake because his phone hadn't stopped buzzing since sundown. Agent Torres, FBI, Organized Crime Division. They had history, the kind that couldn't be explained in official reports. "You found another one, didn't you?" Torres's voice was tired, resigned. "I wasn't looking." "You never are. That's what makes you so damn effective." Marcus sat on the edge of the motel bed, Shadow curled at his feet. The room was sparse, clean, forgettable. Exactly the kind of place a man passed through without leaving a trace. "Tell me about Briggs," Marcus said. "Vernon Briggs." Torres sighed. 54 years old, chief of police in Pinewood Creek for 18 years, and the most protected corrupt cop in Montana. Protected by who? Everyone. Torres's voice hardened. State senators, county judges, even a few federal officials who look the other way. The man runs that town like his personal kingdom. What's he into? Everything. Extortion, drug trafficking, money laundering, murder, though we've never been able to prove it. Murder? At least 6 people have disappeared in that town over the past decade. All of them had one thing in common. They crossed Briggs. "They crossed Briggs," Torres confirmed. "We've sent 3 investigators over the years. 2 were run out of town. What happened to the third?" "Car accident." Torres's voice went flat. "Single vehicle, no witnesses. Case closed within 48 hours. Marcus felt the cold settling into his chest. The same cold that came before every mission. The cold that told him he was exactly where he needed to be. "What do you need?" he asked. "Evidence. Something solid enough to pierce his protection." Torres paused. "But Marcus, this isn't your fight. You're a civilian now. You don't have to." "I'm already in it." Torres was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Be careful. Briggs has survived this long because he's smart, ruthless, and completely without conscience. So am I." "No." Torres's voice softened. "You have a conscience. That's what makes you dangerous. And that's what makes you vulnerable." Marcus hung up, looked at Shadow. The dog's eyes were open, alert, watching. "Looks like we're staying a while, boy." Shadow's tail thumped once against the floor. The next morning, Marcus returned to Ruby's diner. Ruth was behind the counter, same apron, same nervous hands, but something was different in her eyes, something that hadn't been there before. "You came back," she said. "I told you I would." Ruth set down a cup of fresh coffee in front of him. "Hot this time." "I need to know everything," Marcus said quietly. "About Briggs, about this town, about what happened here." Ruth's face paled. "If you don't talk, nothing changes. And Briggs keeps doing what he's been doing for 18 years. Ruth's hands trembled. She looked around the diner. Empty. Too early for the regular crowd. "My husband," she whispered. "Thomas. He died 5 years ago." "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry." Ruth's voice cracked. "Be angry, because he didn't die. He was murdered." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Briggs?" "Thomas owned the hardware store. Been in our family for 3 generations. When Briggs started demanding protection money, Thomas refused. Said he'd rather close the store than pay a criminal." "What happened?" Ruth's tears fell freely now. "They found his truck at the bottom of Miller's Ravine. Said he lost control on the curve. Said it was an accident. But it wasn't. Thomas drove that road every day for 40 years. He knew every inch of it." Ruth met Marcus's eyes. "They killed him, and no one did anything because everyone was afraid." Marcus reached across the counter, took Ruth's trembling hand in his. "Who else?" he asked gently. "Who else has Briggs hurt?" Ruth's face crumpled. "Everyone," she whispered. "Everyone in this town has a story. A brother who was beaten, a sister who was threatened, a child who was... She couldn't finish. "There's someone else," Ruth said finally. "Someone who might be able to help you." "Who?" "My nephew, Danny." Ruth's voice broke. "He was a Marine. Came back from Afghanistan 3 years ago. When he saw what Briggs was doing, he tried to stop it." "What happened to him?" Ruth's face went white. "He disappeared 3 months ago. Briggs said he left town, said he couldn't handle civilian life, but you don't believe that. Danny would never leave without telling me. Never." Ruth gripped Marcus's hand with surprising strength. I think Briggs took him. I think he's keeping him somewhere." "Why?" "Because Danny saw something." Ruth's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "The night before he disappeared, he called me. Said he had evidence. Said he was going to bring Briggs down." "What kind of evidence?" "I don't know. But whatever it was, it scared Danny. And Danny wasn't scared of anything." Marcus felt the pieces clicking into place. A corrupt chief with 18 years of crimes. A Marine veteran who tried to expose him. A disappearance that no one investigated. And a town too terrified to ask questions. "Where would Briggs keep someone he wanted to disappear?" Marcus asked. Ruth hesitated. "There's an old copper mine, about 15 miles north of town. Been abandoned for 30 years. But I've seen Briggs' trucks heading that way at night." Marcus stood. "Don't tell anyone we talked." "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done the moment I saw how scared you were." Ruth's eyes widened. "He'll kill you." "He can try." Marcus walked toward the door. Shadow fell into step beside him. "Mr. Reyes?" He turned. Ruth was standing behind the counter, tears streaming down her face. But her voice was steady. "If you find Danny, tell him his aunt never stopped looking. Tell him I never gave up." "I will." "And Mr. Reyes?" "Yes?" Ruth's jaw set. "Make them pay. For Thomas. For Danny. For all of us." Marcus nodded once. Then he was gone. The road to the mine was exactly where Ruth had described. 15 miles of dirt and gravel winding through pine forests and rocky outcrops. No signs, no markers. The kind of road that existed specifically to hide what waited at the end of it. Marcus drove slowly, watching, calculating. Shadow sat in the passenger seat, alert, his damaged ear twitching at every sound. They reached the mine entrance at noon, or what was left of it. The main shaft had been boarded up decades ago, warning signs faded and peeling. But the tire tracks in the dirt were fresh. Multiple vehicles, heavy, recent. Marcus parked the truck behind a ridge of boulders. "Stay here, boy. Watch the truck." Shadow whined softly. "I know, but I need to do this alone first." Marcus rubbed the dog's head. "If I'm not back in 2 hours, go find Ruth." Shadow's eyes held his. The understanding between them needed no words. Marcus moved through the forest like a ghost. 20 years of SEAL training had made stealth second nature. He didn't walk through the woods. He flowed through them. Silent, patient, invisible. The mine entrance came into view, and his blood went cold. 2 guards, armed, not deputies, private security, the kind that cost serious money. What the hell is Briggs hiding here? Marcus circled the perimeter, found a secondary entrance, a ventilation shaft, half collapsed but passable. He squeezed through. The darkness swallowed him. Inside, the air was cold, damp, and carried the unmistakable smell of human suffering. Marcus moved through the tunnels, following the sounds. Dripping water, distant voices, and something else. Moaning. Weak. Desperate. He found the chamber at the heart of the mine, and what he saw nearly broke him. A man, mid-20s, chained to a support beam. His face was swollen beyond recognition, his body covered in bruises and burns. But he was alive. Barely. "Danny Holloway?" Marcus whispered. The man's head lifted. His eyes, nearly swollen shut, struggled to focus. Who are you?" "A friend of your aunt's." Marcus was already working on the chains.
"I'm getting you out of here."
"No." Danny's voice was raw, broken. "You don't understand. They'll kill you. They'll kill everyone." "Who?" Marcus freed the first chain. "What did you see, Danny?" Danny's body convulsed with sobs. Everything. He saw everything. Briggs, the drugs, the money, and what? Danny's voice dropped to a whisper. "The bodies." "What bodies?" "The people who disappeared." Danny's tears mixed with blood. "They didn't leave town. They're here, in the mine. All of them." Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. "How many?" Danny shook his head. "I stopped counting at 12. The sound of footsteps echoed through the tunnel. Voices, getting closer. "We need to move, now." "I can't walk." "Then I'll carry you." Marcus lifted Danny over his shoulder. The man weighed nothing. 3 months of captivity had reduced him to skin and bones. "Ruth," Danny whispered. "Is she okay?" "She never stopped looking for you." Danny's body shook with silent sobs. Tell her I'm sorry. You can tell her yourself." Marcus moved through the tunnels, faster now. No time for stealth. Behind him, shouts. They found the empty chamber. They knew. The race was on. Marcus burst from the ventilation shaft. Sunlight blinded him for a second. 1 second too long. A rifle barrel pressed against his temple. Going somewhere? Deputy Carson, one of Briggs's men. Young, nervous, but armed. Put him down. Slowly. Marcus calculated. The deputy was scared. Scared men made mistakes. "You don't want to do this," Marcus said quietly. "Shut up! Put him down! If you shoot me, you'll have to explain why. And when the FBI comes asking..." "FBI?" Carson laughed nervously. "Nobody's coming. Nobody cares about this town." "Someone does." "Yeah? Who?" "Me." A blur of brown and black erupted from the forest. Shadow. 65 pounds of muscle and fury launched at Carson's arm. The rifle fired wild. Carson screamed. Marcus was already moving. One strike to the throat. Carson dropped. Shadow released. "Good boy," Marcus breathed. "Very good boy." He lifted Danny again, ran for the truck. Behind him, more shouts, more footsteps. The hunt was on. Marcus reached the truck, threw Danny into the back seat. Shadow jumped in. The engine roared to life, tires spraying gravel as Marcus floored the accelerator. In the rearview mirror, he saw them. 3 vehicles. Pursuit. Marcus smiled grimly. They had no idea who they were chasing, and they were about to find out. The truck screamed down the mountain road at 70 miles per hour. Behind them, 3 vehicles closing fast. Marcus's hands were steady on the wheel. His eyes flickered between the road ahead and the rear-view mirror. Shadow braced in the passenger seat, alert, ready. Danny lay in the back, barely conscious. "Hold on," Marcus said. "This is going to get rough." The first bullet shattered the rear window. Danny screamed. Shadow barked. Marcus swerved hard left, then right, the truck fishtailing on loose gravel. Another shot. This one hit the tailgate. "They're serious," Marcus muttered. He yanked the wheel, sending the truck down a narrow side road he'd memorized that morning. Preparation. Always preparation. The pursuit vehicles hesitated, then followed. But they didn't know this road. Marcus did. A fallen log blocked the path ahead. Marcus didn't slow down. "Hold on!" He hit the log at full speed. The truck launched into the air. For a moment, everything was silent, suspended, weightless. Then they crashed down on the other side. The suspension groaned. Metal screamed, but the truck kept moving. Behind them, the first pursuit vehicle hit the log wrong. It flipped. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then stopped. 2 down, Marcus said. 1 to go. The third vehicle was smarter. It found another route, cut them off at the intersection. Marcus slammed the brakes. The truck skidded to a stop. Deputy Carson's partner stood in the road, a shotgun pointed directly at the windshield. "Get out!" he screamed. "Get out of the truck, now!" Marcus's hand moved to his door. "Stay down," he told Danny. "Shadow, guard." The dog pressed against Danny's chest. Protecting. Always protecting. Marcus stepped out slowly, hands visible. "On your knees!" the deputy screamed. "Easy." Marcus's voice was calm. "You don't want to do this." "Shut up! Get on your knees. If you shoot me, you're killing a federal witness. FBI knows I'm here. They know about the mine. They know about the bodies." The deputy's face went white. "What? What bodies?" 12 of them, maybe more, buried in that mine. Marcus took a step forward. "You really want to add one more?" The deputy's hands were shaking. "You're lying." "Am I?" Marcus took another step. "What did Briggs tell you? That it was just drugs? Just money? That no one would get hurt?" He said it was just business. Business. Marcus's voice hardened. "Is that what you call 12 murdered people? Business?" The shotgun wavered. "I didn't know." "You know now." "Briggs will kill me," the deputy's voice cracked. "If I let you go, he'll kill me, and if you don't let me go, the FBI will bury you." Murder conspiracy. Accessory after the fact. 25 to life, minimum. The deputy stared at him. Marcus saw the calculation in his eyes. Fear of Briggs. Fear of prison. Fear of everything falling apart. "What do I do?" the deputy whispered. "Put down the gun. Walk away. Find somewhere safe and stay there until this is over. Briggs has eyes everywhere. Then you better hope I stop him before he finds you." The deputy's hands trembled. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the shotgun lowered. The deputy stepped aside. "I never saw you," he said. "Smart choice." Marcus got back in the truck, drove past the deputy without looking back. In the rearview mirror, he watched the man collapse to his knees. Another broken soul in Briggs's wake. They reached Ruth's house at sunset, a small farmhouse on the edge of town, hidden from the main road by a row of ancient oaks. Ruth was waiting on the porch. When she saw the truck, her hand went to her heart. When she saw Danny, she screamed, "Danny! Oh God, Danny!" She ran to the truck, tore open the back door, and froze. Her nephew, her only family, beaten, broken, barely alive.
"What did they do to you?"
Ruth's voice was barely a whisper.
"What did they do?"
"Aunt Ruth." Danny's cracked lips formed the words. "You found me. I never stopped looking." Ruth pulled him into her arms. "I never stopped." Marcus watched them. Two people reunited against impossible odds. A moment of hope in a sea of darkness. But the hope was fragile, and the darkness was closing in. "We need to move," Marcus said quietly. "Briggs will know I took Danny. He'll come looking." Ruth looked up. Her face was tear-streaked, her eyes red, but her voice was steel. "He can come. I'm done running." "Ruth, no." Ruth stood. 18 years. I've been afraid for 18 years. Watched my husband murdered. Watched my nephew disappear. Watched this town die, one soul at a time. She met Marcus's eyes. "Not anymore." "It's not just about courage," Marcus said. "Briggs has resources, men, weapons. If we're going to beat him, we need a plan." "Then make a plan." Ruth's jaw set. "But I'm fighting."
"Whatever happens, I'm fighting."
Marcus nodded slowly. He understood. Some battles couldn't be walked away from. Some stands had to be made, regardless of the cost. "Help me get Danny inside. We'll figure out our next move." They carried Danny to a back bedroom. Ruth cleaned his wounds while Marcus made calls. Torres answered on the second ring. "Tell me you have something." "I have everything." Marcus's voice was grim. 12 bodies in an abandoned mine. A tortured witness who can testify. And a corrupt chief who's about to realize his empire is burning. Torres exhaled. "Can you get the witness out?" "Not yet. Briggs has the roads locked down. We need backup." "How soon?" "Yesterday." Torres was quiet for a moment. "I can have a team there in 6 hours. Maybe 5 if I push it." 5 hours might be too long. Then you'll have to hold out. Torres's voice hardened. "Marcus, don't do anything stupid." "I never do anything stupid. You do everything stupid. That's why you're still alive." Marcus almost smiled. "Just get here, Torres. We're coming. Hold the line." The line went dead. Marcus pocketed his phone, looked at Ruth. 5 hours. Ruth's face paled. "Can we last that long?" "We don't have a choice." The first attack came at midnight. 3 vehicles, 6 men. Not deputies this time. Private contractors. The kind Briggs used for dirty work that couldn't be traced. They surrounded the farmhouse, cut the power, cut the phone lines. But they didn't know Marcus was waiting. Shadow, perimeter. The dog disappeared into the darkness. Silent. Deadly. Hunting. "Ruth, stay with Danny. I can help." "The best help is keeping him safe. If they get past me, you're the last line." Ruth nodded, grabbed a shotgun from the closet. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. "They come through that door. They die." Marcus moved to the front of the house. found a position by the window, waited. The first contractor approached the porch. Shadow hit him from behind. No sound except the impact. And then silence. One down. The second contractor heard nothing. Marcus took him from the shadows. A chokehold. 15 seconds of pressure. Unconscious. 2 down. The third saw his partners fall. Panicked. Fired wildly into the darkness. "Shadow!" Marcus called. The dog was already moving. Another impact. Another scream. 3 down. The remaining contractors regrouped. "What the hell is this guy?" one of them shouted.
"We're pulling out," another yelled. "This isn't worth it." They ran for their vehicles.
Marcus let them go. These were hired men, not true believers. They'd tell Briggs what happened, and Briggs would come himself. That's what Marcus was counting on. 3 hours, Ruth said when Marcus returned. 3 more hours. He'll come again. Bigger force this time. Maybe Briggs himself. Then we'll be ready. "Are you scared?" Marcus asked. Ruth looked at Danny, sleeping fitfully in the back room.
Terrified. Her voice was steady, but not of dying. "I'm scared of failing him. Again."
"You didn't fail him. I let Briggs take over this town. I let fear rule my life." Ruth's eyes filled with tears.
"If I'd fought 18 years ago, maybe Thomas would still be alive. Maybe Danny wouldn't have suffered."
"You can't change the past."
"No."
Ruth wiped her eyes.
"But I can damn well change the future."
At 3 a.m., Danny woke.
"Aunt Ruth?"
"I'm here." Ruth rushed to his side.
"I'm right here. Where are we?"
"Home. You're home, Danny." Danny's eyes focused slowly. Found Marcus standing in the doorway. "You're the stranger. The one who didn't bow to Briggs." "That's me. Why?" Danny's voice was hoarse. "Why did you help? You don't know us." Marcus was quiet for a moment. 20 years ago, I was in a village in Afghanistan. We were extracting a high-value target. Standard mission. Supposed to be clean." He paused. "But there was a family in the crossfire. A mother and her children. They had nothing to do with the target. Just wrong place, wrong time." "What happened?" "I could have let them die. Would have been easier. Cleaner. No one would have blamed me. But you didn't. I carried those kids 2 miles under enemy fire. Almost died doing it." Marcus met Danny's eyes. "My commanding officer asked me why I risked everything for strangers." "What did you tell him?" "That's when I stopped being a stranger." Danny stared at him. "You're not normal." "No." Marcus almost smiled. "But neither are you. A Marine who tried to take on a corrupt police chief single-handed? That takes a special kind of crazy." Danny laughed. It hurt. But he laughed anyway. The first real laugh in 3 months. At 4 a.m., they came again. 12 men this time. And Briggs himself. Marcus watched from the window. The police chief stood in the middle of the road. His deputies flanked him. Contractors spread out in a semicircle. Overkill. But also fear. Briggs was scared, and scared men made mistakes. "Reyes!" Briggs's voice echoed through the night. "I know you're in there." Marcus didn't respond. "Come out now, and I'll make it quick. Keep hiding, and I burn this house to the ground with everyone inside." Still nothing. Briggs's face contorted with rage. "You think you're some kind of hero? You think you can come into my town and take what's mine?" His voice cracked. "I built this! 18 years! I built this empire from nothing, and no drifter is going to tear it down." Marcus opened the front door, stepped onto the porch. Alone. Shadow stayed inside, guarding Danny, guarding Ruth. "Briggs," Marcus said calmly, It's over." "Over?" Briggs laughed. "Look around you. I have 12 men." "You have what? An old woman and a half-dead Marine?" "I have the truth." "Truth," Briggs spat. "Truth doesn't mean anything in this town." "I am the truth. The FBI knows about the mine. They know about the bodies. They're on their way right now." Briggs's face flickered. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Marcus stepped off the porch. 1 hour, Briggs. In 1 hour, this place will be crawling with federal agents. Every one of your men will be arrested. Every one of your secrets will be exposed. You're lying. And you're scared. Marcus walked toward him. "I can see it. For the first time in 18 years, you're actually scared." Briggs's hand went to his gun. "Stop right there." "Or what?" Marcus kept walking. "You'll shoot me? In front of all your men? Add another murder to the list? Stay back." "How many will flip, Briggs?" Marcus's voice was relentless. "How many of your loyal deputies will cut deals the moment the FBI puts them in a room? How long before they're all testifying against you?" "Shut up. Carson already broke. He told me everything. The drugs, the money, the bodies. He's probably talking to the feds right now." Briggs's face went purple. "Kill him!" he screamed. "Kill him now!" No one moved. Marcus looked at the deputies, at the contractors, at the men who had followed Briggs for years. None of them reached for their weapons. "They're not stupid," Marcus said quietly. "They know what's coming. And they know following your orders now means going down with you." Briggs spun around. "What are you waiting for? Shoot him!" "Chief," one of the deputies stepped forward. Maybe we should think about this." "Think about it? You're all cowards, every one of you." "We're not dying for you," another deputy said. "Not anymore." Briggs's face crumpled. For the first time, Marcus saw the man beneath the monster. Small, scared, utterly alone. "It's over," Marcus said. "Surrender now, and maybe you'll see the outside of a prison before you die." Briggs stared at him, his hands still on his gun, his empire crumbling around him. "No." His voice was barely a whisper. "No, this can't. I won't." He drew his weapon, aimed at Marcus. "If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me." The shot never came. Shadow. 65 pounds of fury exploded from the house. Hit Briggs's arm. The gun flew into the darkness. Briggs screamed, fell. And for the first time in 18 years, the tyrant of Pinewood Creek lay in the dirt, defeated. Marcus looked down at him. "You should have let me finish my breakfast." Briggs whimpered, pathetic, broken, done. In the distance, the sound of helicopters. Torres, the cavalry had arrived, and Pinewood Creek was finally free. The helicopters touched down at 5:17 a.m. 3 Blackhawks, 20 federal agents, a mobile command unit. Agent Torres stepped out first. He surveyed the scene with the practiced eye of a man who had seen too many small towns destroyed by men like Briggs. Marcus Reyes. Torres shook his head. "You never do things the easy way, do you? Easy is boring." Torres looked at Briggs. The police chief sat in the dirt, hands cuffed behind his back, Shadow still watching him with cold, calculating eyes. 18 years, Torres said quietly. 18 years this bastard ran this town, and you brought him down in 3 days. I had help. Torres followed Marcus's gaze to Ruth's house. The old woman stood on the porch, Danny leaning against her shoulder. Both alive, both finally free. "Get medical teams in there," Torres ordered, "and start processing the scene. I want every deputy in custody within the hour." "What about the mine?" Torres's face hardened. "We're sending a forensics team now. If what your witness says is true, 12 bodies, maybe more." "Jesus," Torres exhaled. "How does something like this happen?" "Same way it always happens." Marcus watched as agents swarmed the property. Good people stay silent. Bad people take power. And the silence becomes complicity. "Not anymore." "No." Marcus looked at Briggs. "Not anymore." The next 72 hours were chaos. Forensics teams descended on the mine. They found the bodies. Not 12. 17. 17 people who had crossed Vernon Briggs over 18 years. 17 lives erased. 17 families who had never known the truth. Until now. The news spread like wildfire. National media descended on Pinewood Creek. Cameras everywhere. Reporters everywhere. The story of the corrupt police chief and the Navy SEAL who stopped him dominated every news cycle. Marcus hated every second of it. He wasn't a hero. He was just a man who had been in the right place at the right time. But try explaining that to a camera. "You're famous," Torres said on the second day. Or infamous, depending on who you ask. "I didn't ask for this. Nobody ever does." Torres handed him a coffee. "But you've got it anyway. Might as well use it." "Use it how?" "The families of the victims." Torres's voice softened. "They want to meet you. Want to thank the man who gave them answers." "I didn't give them anything. You just did what nobody else had the courage to do." Torres met his eyes. "That means something, Marcus. Whether you want it to or not." Marcus stared at his coffee, thought about the families. 17 families who had spent years wondering, hoping, fearing. Now they knew. It wasn't much, but it was something. "Okay," he said finally. "Set it up." The memorial service was held on the third day, in the center of town, where everyone could see, where everyone had to face what had happened in their midst. Marcus stood at the back of the crowd. Shadow sat beside him, watching. Always watching. Ruth spoke first. Her voice carried across the crowd with surprising strength. "My husband Thomas was murdered 5 years ago." She didn't flinch from the words. Vernon Briggs killed him because he refused to pay protection money, because he chose integrity over survival. She paused. "For 5 years I believed the lie, that it was an accident, that nobody was to blame, because believing the truth was too painful." Her eyes swept the crowd. "But the truth doesn't care about our pain. The truth is what it is. And the truth about Pinewood Creek is that we let a monster rule us because we were afraid." Murmurs rippled through the audience. Some people nodded. Others looked away, ashamed. "But there's another truth," Ruth continued. "The truth that it's never too late to stand up. Never too late to fight back. Never too late to choose courage over fear." She looked at Marcus. "A stranger came to our town 3 days ago. He had no reason to help us. No obligation. No connection. But when he saw injustice, he acted. When he saw suffering, he intervened. When he saw evil, he refused to look away." Her voice cracked. "That's the kind of person we should all strive to be. That's the kind of community we should build from the ashes of what Briggs destroyed." She stepped back from the microphone. The crowd was silent. Then Danny hobbled forward. His face was still swollen, his body still broken, but his eyes were clear. "My name is Danny Holloway." His voice was rough but steady. 3 months ago, I was thrown into a hole in the ground and left to die. Because I dared to challenge a man who thought he was above the law. He gripped the podium for support. I'm a Marine. I've served in Afghanistan. I've seen combat. I've faced enemies who wanted to kill me. But nothing prepared me for what Briggs did. Nothing prepared me for the darkness of that mine. His voice broke. I thought I would die there. I thought no one would ever find me. I thought my aunt would spend the rest of her life wondering what happened to her nephew. He looked at Marcus. Then a stranger climbed into that darkness and carried me out. A man I'd never met. A man who risked everything for someone he didn't know. Danny's tears fell freely.
Master Chief Reyes, I don't know how to thank you. I don't know if I can ever repay what you did. But I want you to know that you saved more than my life. You saved my soul.
The crowd erupted in applause. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. He didn't want applause. He didn't want recognition. He just wanted to finish his coffee and get back on the road. But some debts couldn't be paid that easily. Some moments demanded to be witnessed. After the service, Torres found him. We need to talk. About what? About Briggs. Torres's face was grim. He's talking. Marcus felt his instincts sharpen. Talking about what? Everything. Torres lowered his voice. Apparently, our corrupt police chief wasn't operating alone. He had partners. Big partners. How big? State level. Maybe federal. Torres paused. He's offering names in exchange for a deal. What kind of deal? Life without parole instead of death penalty. Marcus's jaw tightened. He should rot. Maybe. But if he's telling the truth, we could take down an entire network. Corruption that goes way beyond this little town. Marcus considered. He thought about the families, the 17 bodies in the mine, the years of suffering that could never be undone. What do you need from me? Your testimony, Torres said. At the federal trial, you're our star witness, the man who cracked the case open. I'm not a lawyer. You don't need to be. You just need to tell the truth. About what you saw, what you found, what Briggs did. And if his partners come after me? Torres smiled grimly. Then they'll learn the same lesson Briggs learned. Don't mess with a Navy SEAL. The federal investigation expanded rapidly. Briggs named names. A state senator who had protected him for years. A federal judge who had dismissed complaints. A DEA agent who had looked the other way. The corruption ran deep. Deeper than anyone had imagined. One by one, they fell. The senator resigned in disgrace. The judge was impeached. The DEA agent was arrested. And Pinewood Creek became a symbol. Of corruption, yes, but also of hope. Of what happens when good people finally decide to fight. Marcus watched it all from a distance. He had given his testimony, answered the questions, told the truth. Now he wanted to leave. But something kept him there. Or someone. Danny found him at the diner on the 5th day. You're still here, Danny said. Truck's fixed. Leaving tomorrow. Danny sat across from him. His bruises were fading, but the shadows in his eyes remained. Can I ask you something? Sure. How do you do it? Do what? Keep going. Danny's voice was raw. After everything you've seen, everything you've done, how do you keep moving forward? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I don't, he said finally. What? I don't keep going. Not the way you mean. Marcus looked at his coffee. Some days I wake up and I can barely get out of bed. Some nights I don't sleep at all. Some moments I feel like I'm still back there, in the desert, in the darkness. But you seem so together.
I seem together because I've learned to function while falling apart.
Marcus met Danny's eyes. That's not the same as being okay. Then what's the point? Danny's voice cracked. If you're never okay, what's the point of any of it? Marcus considered, thought about all the years, all the missions, all the people he'd saved, all the people he'd lost. The point, he said slowly, is that even when I'm falling apart, I'm still standing. Even when I can't see the light, I'm still moving toward it. Even when everything tells me to give up, something inside refuses.
What is that something? I don't know, Marcus admitted. Maybe it's stubbornness. Maybe it's faith. Maybe it's just too damn angry to quit. He almost smiled. But whatever it is, it's enough. Enough to get me to the next day. Enough to help the next person. Enough to make a difference, even when I can't feel it. Danny stared at him. For the first time since the mine, something shifted in his eyes. Something that looked like hope.
Aunt Ruth wants me to stay, Danny said. Hello, rebuild the town. Maybe start a program for veterans with PTSD.
That's a good idea. I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I'm strong enough.
Marcus leaned forward. Danny, strength isn't about not falling down. It's about getting back up. Every single time. No matter how many times you hit the ground.
Is that what you do?
That's all any of us can do. Danny was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded.
Will you help me? He asked. With the program? I know you're leaving, but maybe you could come back sometimes? Give me guidance?
Marcus thought about the road ahead, about the cases Torres had mentioned, about the other towns, the other Briggses, the other people who needed help. But he also thought about Danny, about the broken man who had found a thread of hope, about the chance to build something instead of just tearing things down. I'll come back, Marcus said. Once a month. Help you get started. Danny's face lit up.
Really?
Really. Marcus stood, but right now, I need to get some sleep. Big drive tomorrow. Where are you going? Marcus looked at Shadow, at the dog who had been his partner through everything. Wherever I'm needed, he said. Same as always. Danny extended his hand. Marcus took it. Thank you, Danny said, for everything. Thank you for surviving, Marcus replied. That took more strength than anything I did. Danny's eyes glistened, but he didn't cry. He was done crying. Now he was ready to rebuild.
That night, Marcus sat on the porch of Ruth's farmhouse. Shadow lay at his feet. The stars burned bright overhead. Ruth came out with 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might want company. Marcus took the cup.
Thank you. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the night, breathing the clean mountain air. Finally, Ruth spoke.
I've been afraid for 18 years. Her voice was soft. Afraid of Briggs. Afraid of the truth. Afraid of my own shadow.
She paused. You know what I realized? What? Fear was the prison. Ruth looked at him. Not Briggs, not the threats, not any of it. I was my own jailer, and I could have walked out any time. Most people never realize that. I know. Ruth sipped her coffee. That's what makes you different. You never let fear win, even when you should. I've been afraid plenty of times. But you acted anyway. That's all courage is. Marcus watched the stars. Being afraid and acting anyway. Ruth nodded slowly. I'm going to teach that to everyone who will listen. I'm going to make sure this town never forgets what fear cost us and what courage can build. That's a good legacy. It's our legacy. Ruth's voice strengthened. Yours, mine, Danny's. Everyone who stood up when it mattered. She turned to face him. You saved us, Marcus Reyes. I don't care if you don't want the credit. I don't care if you don't think you're a hero. You are. To this town. To my family. To me. Marcus was quiet. Didn't know what to say. Didn't know if there was anything to say. So he just nodded and let the silence speak for him. The next morning, Marcus loaded his truck. Shadow jumped into the passenger seat. Half the town had gathered to see him off. Ruth, Danny, dozens of faces he'd come to recognize over the past week. All of them there to say goodbye to the stranger who had changed everything. You sure you won't stay? Ruth asked. I'm sure. Marcus looked at the crowd. But I'll be back. I promised Danny. You promised me too. Ruth's eyes were bright. Don't forget. I won't. Ruth hugged him, hard, long. The embrace of a woman who had lost so much and finally found hope. Take care of yourself, she whispered. You too. Danny stepped forward, the veteran who had been broken, now standing tall. I'll make you proud, Danny said. The program, the veterans. I'll do it right. I know you will. They shook hands. Then Danny did something unexpected. He saluted. A Marine saluting a Navy SEAL. Two warriors, bound by sacrifice, united by hope. Marcus returned the salute, held it for a moment, then dropped his hand. Semper Fi, he said quietly. Semper Fi, Danny replied. Marcus climbed into the truck, started the engine, looked at the town one last time, at the people who had been imprisoned by fear, now free, because one man had refused to look away. He put the truck in gear and drove toward the mountains, toward the road, toward whatever came next. In the rearview mirror, he watched Pinewood Creek fade into the distance. But it would never really fade. It would stay with him, like all the other places, like all the other people, like all the other moments when courage mattered more than comfort. His phone buzzed. Torres. You're on the road? Just left. Good. Torres's voice was serious. Because I've got another one. Another what? Another town. Another corrupt official. Another group of people who need help. Marcus looked at Shadow. The dog's eyes were already alert. Ready. Send me the details, Marcus said. Already did. Torres paused. And Marcus? Yeah? What you did in Pinewood Creek. It matters. More than you know. Marcus was quiet. Just doing my job. Your job ended when you retired. This is something else. What's that? A calling. Marcus considered the word. Calling. Maybe Torres was right. Maybe this was what he was meant to do, not for glory, not for recognition, just because it was right. I'll call you when I arrive, Marcus said. Stay safe. Always. He hung up, looked at the road ahead, long, winding, full of unknowns, but also full of purpose. Ready, boy? Marcus asked. Shadow's tail thumped against the seat. Then let's go. The truck accelerated. The road opened up, and Marcus Reyes drove toward his next mission, carrying with him the lessons of Pinewood Creek. That courage is contagious. That hope is never wasted. That one person can change everything. And that sometimes the punch that starts a war is also the punch that ends a tyranny. Briggs had thrown the first punch. Marcus had thrown the last. And justice had won. 6 months later, the trial began. Federal Courthouse, Helena, Montana. Cameras everywhere. Media from every major network. The corruption case that had rocked the nation was finally going to court. Marcus sat in the witness waiting room, Shadow at his feet, Torres beside him. "You ready for this?" Torres asked. "Does it matter?" Marcus watched the door. In a few minutes, he would walk into that courtroom, face Briggs one more time, tell the world what happened in Pinewood Creek, and hope that the truth was enough. "You know his lawyers are going to tear into you," Torres said. "Try to make you look like a vigilante, a rogue operator who took the law into his own hands." "Let them try, Marcus." Torres's voice was serious. "I need you to stay calm in there, no matter what they say, no matter how hard they push. I survived Fallujah." Marcus almost smiled. "I think I can survive a courtroom." The door opened. A bailiff appeared. "Mr. Reyes, they're ready for you." Marcus stood, looked at Shadow. "Stay here, boy. I'll be back." Shadow whined softly, but obeyed, as he always did. The courtroom was packed, every seat filled, standing room only. And in the center of it all, behind the defense table, sat Vernon Briggs, the man who had terrorized a town for 18 years, the man who had ordered 17 murders, the man who had punched Marcus Reyes in a diner and expected him to break. Briggs looked different now, smaller, older. The arrogance that had defined him was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like defeat. Almost. But Marcus knew better. Men like Briggs didn't accept defeat. They just waited for another opportunity. Marcus took the witness stand, raised his right hand, swore to tell the truth. And then the questions began. The prosecutor was direct, efficient, methodical. She walked Marcus through the events, arriving in Pinewood Creek, meeting Ruth, the confrontation at the diner, the punch, the investigation, the rescue, the final showdown. Marcus answered each question clearly, without embellishment, without emotion, just the facts. The defense attorney was different. Lawrence Mitchell. Expensive suit. Perfect hair. The kind of lawyer who got rich defending people who should have been in prison decades ago. Mr. Reyes. Mitchell's voice was smooth, condescending. "You claim to be a retired Navy SEAL." "I don't claim anything. I am a retired Navy SEAL." "And in your time as a SEAL, how many people did you kill?" The courtroom shifted. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Objection!" The prosecutor was on her feet. "Relevance? Goes to the witness's character, Your Honor." Mitchell smiled. His propensity for violence. "I'll allow it," the judge nodded. "Witness will answer." Marcus met Mitchell's eyes. "Classified." "Excuse me?" "My operational record is classified. I can tell you that I served my country with honor for 20 years. Beyond that, the details are above your clearance level." Mitchell's smile faltered. "Surely you can give us a ballpark figure. Surely you can move on to a relevant question." Laughter rippled through the gallery. The judge gavelled for order. Mitchell's face reddened. "Very well." He changed tactics. "Mr. Reyes, isn't it true that you entered Chief Briggs's jurisdiction without authorization and proceeded to conduct an illegal investigation?" "There was nothing illegal about it. You broke into a private mine." "I entered an abandoned mine to rescue a kidnapping victim." "You assaulted multiple law enforcement officers." "I defended myself against armed attackers who were trying to kill me." "You took the law into your own hands." Marcus leaned forward. "The law was broken, Mr. Mitchell. For 18 years, Vernon Briggs was the law in Pinewood Creek, and he used that law to murder, extort, and terrorize innocent people." His voice hardened. Someone had to stop him. Mitchell paced. "So you admit you acted as judge, jury, and executioner?" "No." Marcus's voice was steady. "I acted as a witness, a rescuer, a man who saw something wrong and refused to look away." He looked at the jury. Every one of you knows what happened in that town. You've seen the evidence, the bodies, the testimonies. You know what Briggs did. His eyes moved to Briggs. And you know he would still be doing it today if no one had stopped him. No further questions. Mitchell sat down. The closing arguments lasted 3 hours. The prosecutor laid out the evidence. Systematic, irrefutable. 17 murders, dozens of extortion cases, years of corruption, a pattern of terror that had destroyed countless lives. Mitchell argued self-defense, misunderstanding, claimed Briggs was a victim of overzealous prosecution. No one believed him. Not even Briggs. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Marcus waited outside the courthouse, Shadow beside him. Ruth and Danny had come for the verdict, standing with him. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The doors opened. A bailiff appeared. They're back. The courtroom was silent as the jury filed in. Marcus watched their faces, searching for a sign, a hint, anything. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" the judge asked. "We have, Your Honor." The foreman stood. "On the count of murder in the first degree, count 1, we find the defendant Vernon Briggs guilty." Ruth gasped. Danny's hand found hers. "On the count of murder in the first degree, count 2, guilty." One by one the verdicts came. Guilty, guilty, guilty. 17 counts of murder, guilty on all. 32 counts of extortion, guilty on all. Conspiracy, obstruction of justice, witness tampering, guilty, guilty, guilty. By the time the foreman finished, Briggs was slumped in his chair. The arrogant police chief who had ruled with an iron fist, reduced to nothing. The judge set sentencing for the following month. But everyone knew what was coming. Life without parole. Minimum. Probably worse. As the bailiffs led Briggs away, he turned. His eyes found Marcus. For a moment, they just stared at each other. The man who had punched a stranger in a diner, and the stranger who had brought him down. "This isn't over," Briggs said. "Yes," Marcus replied quietly. "It is." Briggs was dragged through the door, and the courtroom erupted. Applause. Tears. 18 years of pain finally released. Ruth collapsed into Danny's arms. "We did it," she was sobbing. "We actually did it." Danny held her tight, his own tears streaming. "He's gone, Aunt Ruth. He can't hurt anyone anymore." Marcus watched them, felt something shift in his chest, something that felt almost like peace. Torres appeared beside him. "Hell of a day." "Yeah. What happens now?" "Now?" Marcus looked at Ruth and Danny. "Now they rebuild, and I move on. To the next town? To wherever I'm needed." Torres was quiet for a moment. "You know, there are easier ways to spend retirement." Marcus almost smiled. Easier, maybe, but not better. Outside the courthouse, a crowd had gathered. Hundreds of people, many of them from Pinewood Creek, others from surrounding towns, all of them there to witness justice. When Marcus emerged, the cheering started. He tried to slip away, but they wouldn't let him. "Mr. Reyes!" A reporter thrust a microphone in his face. "How does it feel to bring down a corrupt police chief?" "It feels like justice." "Do you consider yourself a hero?" Marcus paused, thought about all the people who had helped. Ruth, who had been brave enough to talk. Danny, who had survived the unsurvivable. Torres, who had believed him. The town, who had finally stood up. "No," Marcus said. "I consider myself a witness. The heroes are the people who lived under Briggs's shadow and never lost hope. He looked at the camera. They're the ones who deserve your attention, not me. He walked away, Shadow at his heels. The crowd parted, and Marcus Reyes disappeared into the afternoon. 1 year later. Marcus drove down the main street of Pinewood Creek. The town had changed. Stores that had been shuttered were open. Streets that had been empty were full. People who had lived in fear were smiling. It was like seeing a patient who had been in critical condition finally standing on their own feet. Alive. Healing. Growing. Ruby's Diner had a new sign and a full parking lot. Marcus pulled in. Shadow jumped out beside him. The moment they walked through the door, applause erupted. "He's back!" someone shouted. "Marcus!" Ruth rushed toward him. "You came!" "I told you I would." Ruth hugged him, hard, long. The embrace of a woman who had found her freedom. "Look at this place." Marcus looked around. "You've been busy." "We have." Ruth was beaming. "Danny's program is up and running. 14 veterans so far. 3 therapy dogs trained. Speaking of which..." A German shepherd bounded toward Shadow. Smaller, younger, but with the same intelligent eyes. "Shadow!" Danny appeared behind the dog. "Meet Hope. She's our first graduate." Hope. Marcus liked that. "She's beautiful," he said. "She's going to a veteran in Wyoming next week." Danny's voice was proud. "PTSD. Lost his leg in Iraq. Doc says she's exactly what he needs." Marcus watched the 2 dogs circle each other, sniffing, assessing, then playing, like old friends. "You're doing good work, Danny. We're trying." Danny met his eyes. "Because of you. All of this is because of you." "No," Marcus shook his head. "All of this is because of you. I just opened a door. You walked through it." Danny was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. "I still have nightmares." His voice was soft. "About the mine. About what they did." "I know. But I also have good dreams now." Danny looked at Hope. "Dreams about helping people. About making a difference. About being more than what Briggs tried to turn me into." "That's healing. Is that what it feels like?" "Because it's terrifying." "Healing always is," Marcus said. "But it's also worth it." That evening, the town gathered for a celebration. 1-year anniversary of Briggs's arrest. A day that had once seemed impossible. Now a memory that would never fade. Marcus stood at the back of the crowd, watching, as he always did. Ruth took the podium. 1 year ago, she began, we were prisoners in our own town. Afraid to speak. Afraid to hope. Afraid to live. Her voice carried across the crowd. 1 year ago, a stranger walked into our diner. A man with a dog and a broken truck. A man who didn't know our names or our stories. A man who had every reason to keep driving. She paused. But he didn't keep driving. He stopped. He listened. He fought. Her eyes found Marcus in the crowd. And because he refused to look away, we found the courage to stand up. Because he believed we were worth saving, we learned to believe it too. Tears streamed down her face. This celebration isn't just about the end of Briggs. It's about the beginning of us. The beginning of a community that chooses hope over fear. That chooses justice over silence. That chooses courage over comfort. She raised her glass. To Pinewood Creek. To Pinewood Creek, the crowd echoed. And to Marcus Reyes, the man who taught us that one person can change everything. The cheering was deafening. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. But he didn't leave. He stayed, because this was his victory too, whether he wanted to admit it or not. Later that night, Danny found him on Ruth's porch. Shadow and Hope lay at their feet. 2 dogs, Two warriors, resting. "You're leaving tomorrow," Danny said. "Yeah. Another town? Another case. Torres called this morning." Danny was quiet for a moment. "Will you come back?" Marcus looked at him, at the man who had been broken, now standing strong. "Every year," Marcus said, "on this day, I'll come back." "Promise?" "Promise." Danny extended his hand. Marcus took it. "Thank you," Danny said, "for everything. Thank you for not giving up." They stood in silence, watching the stars, breathing the mountain air. "Can I tell you something?" Danny asked. "Sure." "Before you came, I had given up. In that mine, I had made peace with dying. I thought I would never see Ruth again, never feel sunlight again, never have another chance." Marcus listened. "Then you appeared, out of the darkness, like something out of a movie, and you carried me out. I just did what anyone would do." "No," Danny shook his head. "You did what nobody else would do. And that's the difference." He looked at Marcus. "That's what I teach the veterans in my program. That one person can make a difference. That one act of courage can change everything. That hope is never wasted." "Those are good lessons." "They're your lessons. I'm just passing them on." Marcus was quiet, didn't know what to say, didn't know if there was anything to say. So he just nodded and let the stars speak for him. The next morning, Marcus loaded his truck. Shadow jumped into the passenger seat. Half the town had come to see him off. Again. Same as last year. Same as the year before would become. A tradition. A ritual. A reminder that one man's courage had changed everything. Ruth hugged him. "Come back to us," she whispered. "Always." Danny shook his hand. "Stay safe out there." "You too." Marcus climbed into the truck, started the engine, looked at the town one last time, at the people who had been broken, now whole, because someone had refused to give up on them. He put the truck in gear and drove away. In the rear-view mirror, Pinewood Creek faded into the distance. But it never really faded. It stayed with him. Like all the places he had touched, like all the people he had helped, like all the moments when courage had mattered more than comfort. His phone buzzed. Torres. "On the road?" "Yeah, got a new one for you." "Tell me." "Small town in Wyoming. Local sheriff running a protection racket. 3 people already missing." "Same story." "Same story?" Torres paused. "You interested?" Marcus looked at Shadow, at the dog who had been his partner through everything, at the friend who had never let him face anything alone. "Send me the location." "Already did." "Be careful, Marcus." "Always am." The call ended. Marcus looked at the road ahead. Long, winding, full of unknowns, but also full of purpose. A corrupt police chief had punched him in a diner, expected him to break, expected him to run, expected him to be like everyone else who had been intimidated into silence. He had been wrong, because Marcus Reyes didn't break, didn't run, didn't stay silent. He stood up. He fought back. He won, and now he would do it again, as many times as it took, as many towns as needed him, as many people as were trapped in the darkness. Because that was his calling, not revenge, not glory, just justice. One town at a time, one person at a time, one act of courage at a time. The truck accelerated. The road opened up, and Marcus Reyes drove toward his next mission, carrying with him the truth that Pinewood Creek had taught him. That darkness, no matter how deep, cannot survive when good people choose to stand. That hope, no matter how faint, can light the way forward. That one person, just one, can change everything. Vernon Briggs had thrown a punch. Marcus Reyes had thrown it back. And an entire town had risen from the ashes. That was his legacy. That was his purpose. That was his truth. And it would never be forgotten.